The sun had barely risen as I sat on the edge of the bed, the quiet hum of the early morning filling the room. But my thoughts were anything but calm. The hotel room door loomed in my mind, a vision burned into my memory like an indelible stain. Inside that room, 3 men, all strangers, stood with Sarah, laughing and talking, her laughter mixing with theirs in a way that felt completely wrong. I had been watching the footage for what felt like an eternity, but I couldn't look away. The timestamp on the screen glared back at me. 2:52 a.m. That was the moment everything began to fall apart. The moment I realized that the woman I was about to marry, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had betrayed me. But it wasn't just the footage that shattered me. It was what came after. The lies. The way she looked me in the eye every single day since then, as if everything was normal, as if she hadn't just shattered everything we'd built. She smiled at me, talked about the wedding, about our future, while carrying the weight of a secret so heavy, I felt like I'd never be able to breathe again. My name is Ethan Miller, and this is the story of how I disappeared the day before my wedding and how everyone realized the groom wasn't coming back. At 29, I was living a life that, by all accounts, seemed pretty perfect. I worked as a software developer for a growing tech firm, a stable job with good pay and solid benefits. I had my life figured out, or at least I thought I did. Then I met Sarah. It was 2 years ago, at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was 26, a freelance graphic designer, and from the moment we met, there was something magnetic about her. The way she laughed at my stupid jokes, the way she seemed genuinely interested in every little thing I said, the way she always found time to listen. For 2 years, I believed that I'd found the one. We had so much in common, shared so many of the same dreams. It felt right. And last fall, I proposed to her at the same art gallery where we'd had our first date. I remember getting down on one knee, the dimmed lights creating the perfect atmosphere, and her tears as she said yes. Everything was perfect. Our families were thrilled. Our friends kept saying we were the couple everyone wanted to be. We set the wedding date for September 10th, and I thought nothing could ruin it. Sarah had found the perfect venue by the river, a place she'd dreamed about getting married since she was a little girl. It was all supposed to be perfect. But then came the night of her bachelorette party. Sarah had planned the trip to Miami with her closest friends for months, and I had no reason to doubt her. I didn't even think twice about it. My friends and I were heading to a cabin upstate just to relax and get away from the wedding chaos. It wasn't supposed to be a wild weekend, just some fishing, some poker, and some cold beers. Sarah showed me the itinerary for her trip. Beach parties, dinners, shows. I trusted her completely. The Thursday afternoon she left, we kissed each other goodbye. "Have fun, babe," she said with a smile. "I'll send you lots of pictures. Don't get into too much trouble without me." "You either," I joked, hugging her tightly. "Take lots of pictures. I want to see everything." She left with her suitcase in tow, and I loaded up the car with my friends. For the next few days, I'd be disconnected from the world. No cell service, no distractions, just a few days to unwind. But as the weekend wore on, things took a turn I never could have expected. It wasn't until Friday morning, when I woke up to 14 missed calls from a Florida area code, that I realized something was wrong. My stomach tightened. You don't get 14 missed calls from Miami at 3 a.m. unless something went terribly wrong. My heart started racing as I stepped outside, dialing the number back with shaking hands. When the woman on the other end said Sarah was in the hospital for alcohol poisoning, it felt like the ground shifted beneath me. I rushed to pack my things and make the 6-hour drive to Miami, trying to convince myself everything would be fine. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be. And as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to change forever. I arrived at the hospital just as the morning sun began to rise, its light casting long shadows over the city. My heart was pounding in my chest as I walked through the sterile, fluorescent-lit halls. The adrenaline from the long drive had started to wear off, leaving a cold unease in its wake. I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know if Sarah was okay, or if the story she was about to tell me would change everything. When I finally reached her room, I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked drained, pale, and somehow smaller than I remembered. The woman I was supposed to marry didn't seem like the person I'd spent the last 2 years with. The woman who'd laughed with me, held my hand in public, who had told me, with sincerity, that she was excited to spend the rest of her life with me. This woman, this version of Sarah, felt so far removed from the person I had fallen in love with. "Ethan," she whispered when she saw me, her voice cracking. She reached out weakly, and I closed the distance, taking her hand in mine. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I don't even remember what happened. We were at this club, and everything just got out of control. I don't know, Ethan. I just don't know what happened." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I fought it back. The last thing she needed right now was for me to fall apart. I needed to stay strong for her, for us. But there was a part of me that couldn't help but feel betrayed. Her words didn't match the weight of what I was feeling. How could everything have gotten out of control? "It's okay," I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "You're here. You're safe now." But the words tasted hollow in my mouth. I squeezed her hand, trying to reassure myself more than her. "That's all that matters. You're safe." She smiled weakly, but her eyes couldn't meet mine. There was a distance in her that hadn't been there before. It was like she was here, but also somewhere far away, lost in the haze of the night she couldn't remember. "I love you so much, Ethan. I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice fragile, almost breaking. "I love you too, Sarah," I said, but even as I spoke the words, a gnawing doubt began to creep into my mind. I wasn't sure if I could fully believe her. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to believe her anymore. But I didn't say that. Instead, I focused on her recovery. I helped her pack up her things, arranged for the discharge paperwork, and got her into a cab to the airport. We flew back to New York later that evening, and the entire time she slept, her head resting on my shoulder. I should have felt comforted by her presence, but all I could do was stare out the window, my thoughts racing. Something didn't feel right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than she was telling me. The questions swirled in my mind. Why couldn't she remember anything? Why had she been with strangers in a hotel room at 2 a.m.? Why was she avoiding my questions with vague explanations? I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I was beginning to wonder if the truth was something I wasn't ready to face. When we arrived back at the apartment, Sarah went straight to bed, exhausted from the trip. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the night, the missed calls, the details I'd brushed off in favor of trusting her. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through social media, hoping to find something that might help me understand. I expected the usual: selfies, pictures from the trip, maybe a few group shots from the club. But what I found instead was nothing. There was a huge gap in the posts. The last picture had been taken around 11 p.m. on Thursday, and then nothing until Saturday afternoon. It was as if Sarah's trip had vanished. The silence in those missing hours made my stomach turn. I tried to push the feeling away, telling myself I was overthinking it. But then I remembered something Sarah had said earlier. She mentioned a club and a rough night. The lack of details, the weird timing. It all felt like a puzzle that didn't fit together. But I didn't want to confront her just yet. I didn't want to make accusations without knowing all the facts. I'd give her some time to rest, and I'd talk to her later. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, I knew deep down that something had changed. The trust I'd once felt was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't pretend everything was fine. Not anymore. The days that followed felt like a blur. Every minute stretched out, suffocating with unanswered questions and unresolved tension. Sarah seemed distant, quieter than usual, and I could tell she was avoiding me, even when she was sitting right next to me. She'd offer small smiles when I caught her gaze, but they never reached her eyes. There was a hollowness in them now, a wariness that wasn't there before. Every time I asked her about the missing details from the trip, she would quickly change the subject or offer an explanation so rehearsed that it felt more like a script than the truth. "It's just wedding stress," she'd say. "I'm not sleeping well. I just need a little space." But I wasn't blind. The more I tried to brush it off, the more it gnawed at me. Something had happened that night in Miami, something that she wasn't telling me. I didn't want to accuse her outright, but I was no longer convinced that what she'd told me was the full story. She'd been so vague about the details, so evasive about what had really gone down. I was starting to feel like a fool, playing along with her charade, pretending like everything was fine when I knew deep down it wasn't. It wasn't until I found the first real clue that I knew I had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I was on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw a notification from the cloud service that we shared. It was a folder with photos from the trip, and the timestamp showed they'd been uploaded while Sarah was still in Miami. I clicked on it, expecting the usual vacation snaps, fun group photos from the beach, selfies at restaurants, pictures of her laughing with friends. But as I swiped through them, I realized something was off. There was an entire day missing. Photos from Thursday night stopped abruptly at 11 p.m., and then nothing. No pictures from Friday, no posts, nothing until 3 p.m. on Saturday, after we'd already flown back home. I couldn't stop myself from scrolling through the feed again. I knew the truth was buried in these images, even though it felt like I was invading her privacy. But I needed to know what had really happened. I couldn't live with the uncertainty. Something wasn't adding up. If she'd been so drunk, if everything had gotten so out of control, why hadn't she posted any photos that night? Why hadn't anyone else shared their pictures from Friday? My heart raced as I clicked on the next notification, which took me to a private message thread between Sarah and one of her bridesmaids, Emily. At first, it seemed like a harmless conversation about the upcoming wedding plans, jokes about the Bachelorette trip, the usual stuff. But then I saw it. An exchange between Sarah and Emily that was unlike anything I expected. The messages were dated late Thursday night. Sarah had written, "I don't remember anything after the club. Please tell me I didn't do anything stupid." Emily responded, "You got really drunk. And yeah, you did some stuff. But no one's going to talk about it, okay? It stays in Miami. Just focus on the wedding." My stomach twisted, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. You did some stuff. What did that even mean? Was it just a one-off thing? Or was it something far worse? The weight of those words kept echoing in my mind. I felt sick, the kind of sickness that only comes when you realize you've been living in a lie, when the person you thought you knew, the person you loved, was hiding things from you that went far beyond what you were willing to accept. I kept reading. Emily's reply, "You don't have to worry about it. Let's just forget it happened. It's nothing that can't be swept under the rug. You'll get through it, trust me." I couldn't breathe. The thought of Sarah, my Sarah, sitting there, drinking so much that she lost control, made decisions that would haunt both of us, was almost too much to process. It wasn't just that she had gotten drunk and done something she regretted. It was that she had lied to me about it. She had hidden it. She had lied to my face for days, pretending everything was fine, while I had been planning our wedding, believing we were building something solid together. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her. I had to know what really happened that night, and I couldn't do it by living in this fog of uncertainty. I wasn't stupid. I knew that whatever was going on, whatever had happened in that hotel room, wasn't something I could just ignore. But when I turned to face Sarah, sitting there on the couch, looking at me with those same sad eyes, I didn't feel the anger I thought I would. I felt cold, like the warmth that had once existed between us had been wiped away by her lies. "Sarah," I said, my voice tight, "we need to talk about what happened in Miami. I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth." Her face paled, and she glanced away as if the words stung too much to bear. But I couldn't look away. I had to know. I deserved to know. And then, for the first time, I saw the real fear in her eyes. Fear of what I would say next, and fear of facing the truth I had uncovered. "I'm listening," I said, my heart pounding. The silence that hung between us felt suffocating. The silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. Sarah's eyes flicked to the floor, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. She didn't speak for what felt like an eternity, and in that silence, I could feel the weight of everything she hadn't said, everything she'd been hiding. I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to hear the truth, no matter how much it hurt. "Sarah," I said again, my voice steady but forceful, "I'm not leaving until you tell me what really happened." My chest felt tight, like the air itself was too thick to breathe. I had never imagined I would be sitting here, demanding answers from the woman I was supposed to marry. But here I was. I know you didn't tell me everything. I know there's more to the story than what you've said. You owe me the truth. She looked up then, and for the first time, I saw the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just the fear of being caught. It was the fear of losing everything, the life we had built, the trust we'd once shared. It was the fear that everything she had lied about was now unraveling, and she couldn't stop it. Her lips trembled slightly before she took a shaky breath. I don't know where to start, she whispered, her voice barely audible. She swallowed hard and looked at me as if trying to gauge how much of the truth I could handle. Ethan, I was so drunk that night. I don't remember most of it. I don't remember how I ended up at that hotel room, but I did things with them, things I shouldn't have, things I regret, but I don't remember everything, okay? I don't know what happened after a certain point. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. The pain that had been simmering just beneath the surface surged up in full force, but I couldn't let myself lose control. Not yet. I forced myself to listen, to let her keep talking, to hear whatever twisted version of the truth she was about to spill. After the club, I was so drunk, she continued, her voice cracking, and they kept buying me drinks, and I let them. I don't even remember what we talked about. I was in a fog, Ethan, and then I woke up in that hotel room. I didn't know where I was at first. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't even realize. I didn't know how far it had gone. She closed her eyes, as if trying to shut out the memories, but they were already flooding back, one after another. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. So I lied. I told you I didn't remember because it felt safer than telling you the truth. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but they didn't make it any easier to breathe. I'd always known there was something off, but hearing her admit it, hearing her confess to what she had done, was like watching the last pieces of my trust in her fall apart, one by one. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sure I even had the energy for that anymore. I was just broken. And in some twisted way, I felt sorry for her too. She had just admitted that she had let herself fall so far, and I knew that guilt would eat her up for the rest of her life. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was how she had lied to me over and over again for days after the trip. I stared at her for a long moment, the truth sinking in like a heavy stone in my chest. "Sarah," I said quietly, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just tell me what happened from the start? I would have understood. I might have even forgiven you if you'd been honest. But this is different. You lied to my face. You let me plan our wedding, let me love you, while you carried this secret. You had no problem looking me in the eye, pretending everything was fine while I was standing there, trusting you. How do you think that feels? How could you think that was okay?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She just sat there, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time, I saw the shame and regret in her eyes. But even that wasn't enough. The damage was done. I stood up, unable to stay seated any longer. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with unspoken truths. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this, Sarah. I really don't." My voice was barely above a whisper, but it felt like it reverberated in the empty space between us, louder than anything I had said before. I thought I knew you. I thought I knew who you were. But now I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't think I can stay here. Not after all of this. She reached for me, her hand shaking, but I took a step back, not wanting to let her touch me. I had to walk away. I had to. "I can't do this," I said, turning away from her. "I can't be with someone who would lie to me like this. Not after everything we've been through. I need space. I need time to figure out who I am without you." As I walked toward the door, I heard her sob behind me, but I couldn't turn back. I couldn't be the man who kept forgiving her, who let her off the hook every time she broke my heart. I had to be stronger than that. And as I stepped out into the night, I finally realized this was the end. There was no going back. I had lost her. But more than that, I had lost myself in the process. And I didn't know how I was going to find my way back. The following days passed in a blur of cold, sleepless nights and long, lonely hours spent trying to process everything. I left the apartment that night, not knowing where I was going, just knowing I couldn't stay there. The city felt like it was closing in on me, like the weight of the betrayal was pressing down on every inch of my life. I ended up at a small cafe on the corner of a street I didn't recognize, sitting in a booth by the window, nursing a cup of black coffee. The city buzzed around me, but I felt like I was in a vacuum, disconnected from everything and everyone. The decision to leave Sarah hadn't been easy. I had to remind myself over and over that it was the right choice. As much as I had loved her, as much as I still cared for the person I thought she was, I couldn't forgive the lies. I couldn't forgive the fact that she had let me plan a wedding, had let me love her, while she carried a secret that was too heavy to ignore. And it wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the deceit. It was about the way she'd looked me in the eye every day, pretending everything was fine, all while knowing what had really happened. How could I ever trust her again? How could I marry someone who had shown me so little respect? I spent the first few days back at my parents' place trying to sort through the wreckage of my mind. My mother had been devastated when I told her what had happened. She'd cried for hours, held me in her arms as if I were the one who needed comfort. But my father, he didn't say much. He never did when things got tough. But I could see the anger in his eyes, not at me, but at Sarah, for what she had done to me. He was the kind of man who believed in doing the right thing, and in his eyes, Sarah had betrayed that trust in a way that couldn't be fixed with an apology. I felt guilty for putting my family through this, for dragging them into the mess that had become my life. But I also felt relief. Being at home, away from the apartment, away from the memories of everything that had fallen apart, gave me some sense of peace. But that peace didn't last long. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face. Every time I woke up, I heard her voice in my head, repeating her apologies, telling me she was sorry. But her words meant nothing now. The damage had been done. I stayed at my parents' for a week, trying to figure out what to do next. It wasn't that I was lost. It was that I was afraid of moving forward. I wasn't sure I could ever trust anyone again, let alone open myself up to the possibility of love. I was angry at myself for letting Sarah in, for trusting her when I should have known better. I was angry at her for breaking everything, and I was angry at the world for making me feel so small and foolish. It wasn't until I decided to take a walk one morning that I realized what I needed to do. It wasn't about finding the strength to forgive Sarah, because I knew that wasn't going to happen. It wasn't about figuring out how to fix things. It was about finding a way to let go. I had spent so much of the last few years wrapped up in Sarah, in our relationship, in the idea of us, that I had forgotten who I was without her. I had lost myself in trying to make things work, in trying to make her happy. But what about me? What about my happiness? I walked for hours that day, letting the quiet of the world around me drown out the noise in my head. I thought about everything that had happened, but I also thought about everything that could happen. I thought about who I wanted to be, not as Sarah's fiancé, but as Ethan. I thought about what I wanted out of life, what I needed to feel whole again. And slowly I began to realize that I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined. I had been hurt, yes, but I wasn't beyond repair. By the time I returned to my parents' house that evening, I knew what I had to do. I had to let go of the past. I had to stop blaming myself for things that were out of my control. I couldn't change what Sarah had done, but I could choose to move on. I didn't need her to apologize anymore. I didn't need her to fix anything. I needed to fix myself. The next morning, I called the apartment. Sarah picked up after the third ring. She said before I could even speak. Her voice sounded hollow, as if she had cried herself empty. I never wanted to hurt you. I was afraid. I thought I could fix it before you found out, but now I see how wrong I was. I can't do this, Sarah, I said, my voice steady, though I could feel the weight of the words pressing down on me. I can't keep pretending. I can't keep living in the shadow of your lies. I understand, she whispered, and I could hear the pain in her voice. I'll always love you, Ethan. I hope you find what you're looking for. And with that, I hung up the phone. It was over. There was nothing left to say. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just done. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a small sense of peace. The future was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to face it, alone if I had to. And that was okay. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life, but they were also the most freeing. It was strange, like I had been walking through a fog for so long, and now suddenly I was seeing the world clearly again. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. I spent my days staring at the walls of my parents' house, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I'd wake up in the mornings, unsure of who I was or where I was going. My whole identity had been tied to Sarah, to the idea of the future we were supposed to have together. But now all of that was gone. I kept busy doing small things to fill the time, cleaning out my room, organizing old boxes of memories I'd shoved into the attic. It was like I was trying to rebuild my life from scratch. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, the loneliness always crept in. At night, when the house was quiet and my family was asleep, I'd lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the past months pressing down on me. I missed her. I missed the version of her I had believed in. I missed the life we were supposed to have. But at the same time, I couldn't deny that I was better off without her. It wasn't until I decided to leave my parents' house that I started to feel like I was moving forward. I needed a change, something to help me break free from the constant reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I packed up a bag, kissed my mom goodbye, and drove to Portland, a city I had always loved but never had the chance to visit. The idea of starting fresh in a new place, away from the old memories and the people who had witnessed my heartbreak, felt like the only way I could truly move on. Portland was different from New York, slower, quieter. I found an apartment in a cozy building near the river, far enough from the center of the city to feel peaceful, but close enough that I could still get to work and meet new people. It was exactly what I needed. I spent the first few weeks settling in, getting to know the area, and just breathing. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was drowning in the weight of the past. I could finally exhale. Work helped too. The team at the tech startup I joined was supportive, understanding that I needed time to adjust after what had happened. I threw myself into the projects I was assigned, diving into code and problem solving in a way that felt good, even comforting. It was like I was reprogramming myself, focusing on something I could control. I wasn't thinking about Sarah anymore, or the life I thought I was going to have. I was building a new future, one step at a time, in a place where no one knew my story. It was at a local coffee shop a few weeks after I'd moved that I met Claire. She was sitting at the counter, her eyes focused on her laptop, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans. I was waiting in line, scrolling through my phone when I noticed her. I hadn't thought much about dating or meeting anyone new. After everything that had happened, I was certain that I wouldn't be ready for a long time. But something about Claire made me want to talk to her. I found myself approaching her, an awkward but genuine smile on my face. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. She looked up, surprised, then smiled back. "No, it's free. Please, have a seat." I sat down, unsure of where the conversation would go, but it felt easy. She didn't know anything about me, about my past, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like a relief. We talked about simple things, books we were reading, the coffee shop's terrible Wi-Fi, the odd weather in Portland. I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I remember feeling like I could breathe again. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other more. Claire was kind, patient, and grounded. She didn't push me to open up about my past. She didn't ask me about my previous relationship or what happened between me and Sarah. She let me take things at my own pace. And in a way, that was everything I needed. She was someone I could build a new future with, someone who accepted me as I was, without any baggage or expectations. We went on hikes, tried new restaurants, and spent hours talking about our favorite music and the places we wanted to travel. With Claire, I didn't feel like I was living in the shadow of the past anymore. She made me believe in new beginnings. It was during one of our hikes in the Cascade Mountains, surrounded by nothing but the beauty of nature. that I realized something important. I wasn't broken. I wasn't damaged. I had been hurt, yes, but I had healed. And now, I was living a life that was mine to control, mine to shape. There was no past holding me back, no past that defined me anymore. I was starting fresh, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like freedom. When Claire and I got engaged a year later, it wasn't with any of the anxiety or hesitation that had surrounded my previous relationship. There was no fear of betrayal, no sense of uncertainty. It was just the two of us, standing on the edge of a future that was ours to create. I still thought about Sarah from time to time, but the pain had faded. I realized I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had learned to trust myself again, to trust that I could build the kind of life I deserved, one where I was happy, whole, and free to love again. And when I looked at Claire, I knew I was ready to begin this new chapter with someone who truly understood me. The past was behind me, and for the first time, I was excited for what the future would bring. The weeks that followed felt like the kind of slow, steady progress that makes you realize how far you've come without even noticing it. I had settled into my new life in Portland, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just surviving. I was starting to live again. I kept busy with work, the new apartment, and the occasional outing with Claire. But there was a part of me that knew I wasn't really living in the past anymore. I had finally moved on from everything with Sarah, and I felt like I had built something solid, something worth holding on to. It was during one of those quiet, routine days that I got an unexpected email from my old work inbox. At first, I wasn't sure I even wanted to open it, but something made me click on it. The subject line was simple: Sarah. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw the name. It had been months since I'd heard from her, and even longer since I'd allowed myself to think about what had happened. The email was from her, sent a few days ago, but somehow sitting unread in my inbox. I took a deep breath and opened it. Ethan, I know you probably never want to hear from me again, and I understand if you don't even want to read this, but I couldn't let another day go by without telling you the truth. I've thought about you so much since that day, and I know I can never take back what I did, but I want you to know that I've changed. I'm in therapy now, and I've been working on myself. I know this doesn't make up for what happened, but I want you to know that I've taken full responsibility for everything. I've hurt you more than I can ever explain, and I am so sorry for that. I will always love you, but I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, truly. I hope you find the happiness you deserve, with or without me. The email left me frozen, staring at the screen. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, all I could do was reread the words over and over again. The apology was sincere. I could tell that much. She had finally admitted the full weight of what she had done. But reading those words, "I've hurt you more than I can ever explain," didn't make the pain go away. It didn't change anything. The past had already been written, and no amount of apologies or regret could rewrite it. I couldn't help but wonder why she was reaching out now. Why months after everything had fallen apart, after I had finally found peace? Was she sending this email? It was as if the past had been quietly sitting in the corner, waiting for the right moment to resurface, and now it was here, threatening to drag me back into that space of anger and confusion. I thought about replying, telling her how much I appreciated her apology, how it had been hard, but I had moved on. But I didn't. I didn't need to reopen that door. The truth was, I had forgiven her a long time ago, not because I thought she deserved it, but because I had realized that holding on to the anger would only poison me. But forgiveness didn't mean I had to let her back into my life, not in any way that mattered. We were both different people now, and we were both better off moving forward separately. I closed the email and sat back in my chair, letting the silence fill the room. It wasn't about the apology anymore. It wasn't about Sarah or the past. It was about me. It was about what I had learned, how I had changed, and the future I was building. I had walked away from that pain, from that betrayal, and while it would always be a part of me, it no longer defined me. I took a moment, gathering my thoughts, before I opened a new email. This time, I wasn't writing to Sarah. I wasn't writing to anyone from my past. I was writing to Claire. Claire, I know this might seem strange, But I want to tell you something important. I've spent so much of my life looking back, holding on to things that hurt me, and I think I'm finally ready to let go of all of it. I'm not the same person I was when we met, and I've learned to embrace that. I'm finally looking forward instead of back. You've helped me realize that, and for that, I'm thankful. I don't know where this journey is taking us, but I'm excited to find out. I'm ready to build something real with you, without the baggage of my past. Thank you for showing me what it feels like to love again. I hit send, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. It felt right. Claire had never asked me to be anyone other than who I was, and she had given me the space to heal, to be myself, and to grow. She had never rushed me, and in doing so, had helped me realize that I didn't need to be defined by the mistakes of others. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. I was finally moving forward, and I knew I was ready for whatever came next. When I closed my laptop, I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city beyond. There was a certain peace that came with letting go, with finally releasing the past and stepping into the future. Whatever that future held, I was ready to face it head on. And this time, I wasn't alone. A few months had passed since I sent that email to Claire, and as time went on, I found myself falling more in love with the life I was building. The ache from the past had faded, replaced with a quiet contentment I had never known before. The pain of losing Sarah had taught me more than I ever imagined about myself. And now, with Claire, I was finally able to embrace what it meant to truly live again, without the heavy shadow of betrayal hanging over me. Things between Claire and I had only deepened. We'd spent weekends exploring new hiking trails, taking weekend trips to nearby towns, and just being present with each other. She understood me in ways no one else had before. I never felt pressured to open up. I never felt like she was expecting anything from me except my honesty. That was all I needed to give, and it felt like a weight lifted from my chest every time I spoke my truth to her. The idea of loving again, without fear or hesitation, was slowly becoming a reality. But there was a moment, one cold Saturday afternoon, that changed everything. When I realized that I could no longer live in the safe bubble I'd created. I had put up walls for so long, guarding myself from the world, from the pain that had come with Sarah. But with Claire, I knew I was ready to finally be vulnerable, to take the next step in our relationship. I wanted to tell her everything, not just about Sarah, but about all the pieces of myself I had tucked away. The part of me that had been shattered and rebuilt, the part of me that was still healing, and the part of me that had learned to trust again. We had been sitting on the couch, flipping through Netflix options, when I decided it was time to finally open up. Claire had always been patient with me, never rushing me to talk about the past, but I knew that I couldn't keep it inside any longer. I needed her to know the truth, the whole truth, not just the pieces I'd given her so far. Claire, I said, my voice softer than I'd intended. There's something I need to tell you, something I've been holding on to for a long time, even before I met you. She turned to face me, her eyes full of concern, but there was no judgment in them, just patience. I could see that she was ready to listen, even if she didn't fully understand yet. I took a deep breath. I think it's time you knew about everything that happened before, about Sarah, about what I went through with her and how it changed me. And I need you to know that I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, I've carried a lot of baggage, but I'm not that person anymore. Claire's expression softened. You don't have to explain everything to me, Ethan, but if you want to, I'm here. I felt a knot form in my throat, but I didn't back down. This was the moment. This was the step I had been waiting for. I needed to be open with her, to trust her with the parts of myself I had kept hidden for so long. I know you already know that I went through a rough time with my ex, I started, my voice cracking just slightly. But what I didn't tell you is that it left me so lost, so broken. I didn't realize how much I was still carrying until I met you. And I need you to know that when we first got together, I was scared. I was scared of opening up to someone new, scared of letting myself trust someone again. But you've made it easier. You've shown me that not every relationship is a lie, that not everyone will hurt me. I paused, my hands trembling slightly as I took hers in mine. She squeezed them gently, offering me all the support I needed without saying a word. I've carried so much guilt with me for the things I let slide with Sarah. I was blind to it all, and when I found out the truth, it shattered me. But the hardest part wasn't just the betrayal. It was the lies I let myself believe. I let her convince me that everything was fine when it wasn't. And when I left, I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from everything I thought I knew about love, about trust. Claire's gaze was steady, but I could see the understanding in her eyes. She wasn't judging me. She wasn't holding my past against me. She was listening, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly heard. I guess I just wanted you to know that I'm not that person anymore, I said, my voice more confident now. I've worked hard to become who I am, and I'm still learning. But I'm ready, Claire. I'm ready to love again, and I want that love to be with you. I want to build something real, something I didn't think was possible for me. Her smile was small at first, but it grew, warmth flooding her face. She pulled me into her arms, holding me tightly. Ethan, she whispered, you're already building something real. You've already come so far, and I'm so proud of you. I felt a rush of relief, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't carrying the past anymore. I was walking forward, and Claire was there beside me, ready to face whatever came next. We didn't need words after that. We just held each other, letting the silence between us speak louder than anything else. In that moment, I knew that I had found the kind of love I had always wanted. Not one that was perfect, but one that was real, built on honesty, trust, and the willingness to grow together. The past was a part of me, but it didn't define me anymore. I was building something better now. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly excited about the future. It had been a few months since I told Claire everything. The raw truth about my past with Sarah and the scars I'd carried for so long. The weight of that confession had lifted something heavy from my chest. But what surprised me most wasn't just the relief. It was how much closer Claire and I had become. She didn't just accept my past. She embraced it. And in doing so, she allowed me to let go of it even more. Our relationship grew naturally after that conversation. It wasn't rushed, nor was it burdened with the expectations of what it should be. It was just us, two people learning to trust again, to laugh without fear, to love without doubt. I found myself falling deeper for her with each passing day, and it was a feeling I didn't take for granted. I had been afraid to let someone in again, but with Claire, I didn't feel that fear anymore. She was patient with me in ways I never thought I deserved, and I found myself letting down walls I didn't even know I'd built. We spent more time exploring the city, taking weekend trips, or simply enjoying the quiet moments together. There were nights where we'd curl up on the couch, drinking wine and talking about everything and nothing, as if we had all the time in the world. And there were moments when silence felt like the most comfortable thing between us, where we didn't need to say anything because we just understood each other, like two pieces of a puzzle that fit perfectly. But despite all the peace I felt, there was still a nagging feeling in the back of my mind, something I hadn't quite been able to shake. As much as I loved Claire, as much as she had shown me what it meant to truly be loved, there was still that part of me that felt like I was living with one foot in the past. I had done so much to move forward, but there was still a thread of doubt that I hadn't addressed. I didn't know when it would hit me, but one Saturday morning, as we sat in the kitchen drinking coffee, the thought popped into my head. I hadn't seen Sarah in months, and I hadn't spoken to her since that last email. Part of me had hoped I'd never have to face her again, that she would stay out of my life, out of my mind. But I realized something then. I wasn't as free as I thought I was. I hadn't closed the door on Sarah. Not completely. Not really. I had never given myself the opportunity to truly move on. I'd buried it under the layers of my new life with Claire, but the truth was, I was still carrying around the pieces of Sarah's betrayal. I hadn't forgiven her. Not fully. Not the way I needed to in order to be free of her. I turned to Claire, who was watching me with a soft, knowing smile, as if she could see the wheels turning in my head. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her voice gentle, like she knew exactly what I was about to say. "I think I need to face Sarah," I said slowly. The words felt strange, like I was about to do something monumental. Not for her, but for me. Claire didn't hesitate. She simply nodded. If that's what you need to do, then I support you. It meant everything to me, hearing that. She wasn't afraid of the past. She wasn't afraid of the parts of me I hadn't fully dealt with. She understood that this wasn't about Sarah or about reopening old wounds. It was about giving me the closure I needed. And so I made the decision. That afternoon, I sent Sarah a message. Just a simple one. Can we talk? The response came quickly, almost too quickly. Yes, I'd like that. We agreed to meet the next day at a small cafe in the city. I wasn't sure what to expect, or if this conversation would bring any closure at all. But I knew that if I was ever going to move forward completely, I had to see her face to face, to hear her say what she needed to say, and to say what I needed to say. The next morning, I woke up with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I could feel the weight of it in my chest, the way my body tensed as I prepared for something I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I was determined. It was time. When I walked into the cafe, I saw her immediately. She hadn't changed much, though her eyes seemed tired in a way they hadn't been before. She looked up as I approached, and I saw a flicker of guilt in her expression. For a brief moment, I almost regretted being there. The memories of all the pain came rushing back, memories I'd buried under months of healing. But then I sat down and I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was just tired of carrying it all. I'm sorry, she said before I could speak. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in a long while, I saw vulnerability in her. I've been trying to figure out how to make this right, how to tell you that I understand how badly I hurt you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to make up for it, but I'm so sorry. I took a breath, and for the first time in months, I found the courage to speak the words I'd needed to say. I've forgiven you, Sarah. I've forgiven you for what happened, but it took me a long time to get there. I think for the first time, I'm finally letting go. There was a pause between us, the weight of those words settling in the space. I realized that this moment wasn't about Sarah anymore. It was about me, about setting myself free from the anger and the hurt that had kept me in the past for so long. It was about closing a chapter, not for her, but for me. And for the first time, I felt the weight of her betrayal lift completely. The conversation with Sarah was as difficult as I expected, but it was also the kind of conversation I had needed to have for a long time. It wasn't about fixing anything. It wasn't even about closure, in the traditional sense. It was about releasing the last remnants of the past that had been clinging to me for so long. Sitting there across from her, listening to her apologies and seeing the regret in her eyes, I realized that I had carried around so much anger, so much resentment, but none of it was serving me anymore. It was only holding me back from truly moving on. When I left that cafe, I felt lighter. The weight that had settled on my chest months ago, the burden of betrayal and hurt, was slowly starting to dissipate. The process wasn't instant, of course. I still had moments where doubt would creep in, where the memories would come rushing back, but I knew I was in control now. I had faced Sarah, confronted the truth, and let go of the things I couldn't change. I didn't want to linger in the past any longer. I didn't want to spend another minute stuck in the pain of what happened. I had spent too long wondering what might have been, too long trying to fix something that was never meant to be. And now, with a clarity I hadn't felt in a long time, I realized that the only thing I could control was my future. The following days were different. They felt quieter, but not in the way I had feared. There was no more chaos inside me. There was no more back and forth in my head. I didn't have to keep reliving the past, second-guessing every choice I made. I was ready to embrace the life I had now, with Claire by my side, and to stop looking back at the life I had left behind. Claire and I had spent most of the day at the farmer's market, strolling hand in hand, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. I realized how much I had come to rely on her steadiness, her calm. She was the kind of person who didn't need to speak much, but when she did, it was always with kindness, always with a thoughtfulness that made me feel seen, heard, understood. And I knew in that moment that I was ready for whatever came next. As we walked back to the car, Claire glanced at me, her eyes soft with curiosity. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice warm but gentle, like she was giving me the space to say whatever I needed to. I paused, taking a deep breath. "I feel okay. No, I feel more than okay. I feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. I think I've been carrying around so much weight for so long that I didn't even realize how heavy it was until I let it go." She smiled, her hand brushing against mine. "I'm proud of you. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm glad you found your peace." Her words hit me in a way I hadn't expected. I realized that the reason I was able to let go of everything was because of her, because of how she had patiently stood by me, letting me heal at my own pace, without rushing me, without forcing me to be anything I wasn't ready to be. She had given me the space to rediscover myself, to forgive myself, and to start fresh. "You've made this easier," I said, looking into her eyes, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't think I could have done this without you. I don't think I could have moved on without your support. You make me believe that it's possible to love again, to trust again. You've shown me what real love can be." Claire squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with affection. "You're already whole, Ethan. You don't need anyone to complete you, but I'm glad you're letting me be a part of your life." And in that moment, I realized something important. Love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about erasing the past or pretending that things hadn't hurt. It was about embracing each other's flaws, accepting the pain and the healing, and building something better out of it. Claire wasn't here to replace Sarah, and I wasn't trying to erase the past. But together, we were building a future that was ours, and that felt like a gift I didn't take for granted. Later that evening, as we sat on the couch in our apartment, wrapped in the quiet comfort of each other's presence, I thought about everything that had brought me to this point. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the pain. It had all been part of my journey. But now I was on a new path. One, I was walking with someone who saw me for who I really was. Someone who loved me not in spite of my past, but because of it. I had found a kind of peace I never thought possible, and it felt like I was finally home. The past was behind me, and the future, our future, was something I was more than ready to face. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but with Claire by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. Because for the first time in a long time, I truly believed in the possibility of happiness, of love, and of moving forward without the weight of old wounds dragging me down. The days after I finally let go of the past felt like the beginning of something new, something I had been waiting for without even realizing it. Claire and I continued to build our life together, not rushing anything, but savoring the moments, each one feeling like it belonged to us. There were still times when I caught myself thinking about Sarah, wondering where she was, what she was doing, if she had found her own peace, but those thoughts were fleeting. I wasn't holding on to the pain anymore, and the moments of doubt were becoming rarer. Claire was everything I needed without even trying. She didn't rush me to make decisions, didn't push me to be someone I wasn't. We fit together, not because we were perfect, but because we understood each other. We had both been through our own versions of heartbreak, and that understanding made everything feel deeper, more real. There was a comfort in knowing that she had seen the worst parts of me, and she didn't shy away from them. She loved me, not in spite of my past, but because of it, because I was who I was, because of everything that had shaped me. It was early one Saturday morning when I realized just how far I had come. Claire had suggested a spontaneous trip up the coast for the weekend, and I was excited. It wasn't the destination that mattered, but the company, the fact that we could be together, laughing, exploring, and talking about everything under the sun. As we drove along the coastline, with the windows down and the wind ruffling our hair, I felt a peace that I hadn't known in years. The road stretched out in front of us, endless and full of possibilities, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was looking back. I wasn't trying to hold on to something that was already gone. I was just living, and I realized that this was what true healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of peace. It wasn't the absence of my past, but the acceptance of it and the understanding that it had no hold over me anymore. I had the power to shape my own future, and for the first time, I was ready to embrace it. We spent the weekend wandering through small coastal towns, finding hidden cafes, hiking trails, and quiet beaches. It was on one of those quiet beaches, as the sun began to set, that Claire turned to me, her face serious but warm. "Ethan, I've been thinking," she said, her voice soft but full of conviction. "I know we've been taking things slow, and that's been perfect. But I just want you to know, I'm all in. I love you, I really do, and I'm ready for whatever comes next, for us, for the future. I'm not saying we need to rush anything, but I just want you to know how much you mean to me." Her words hit me like a wave, unexpected, but beautiful. It wasn't that I hadn't felt the same way. I had. It was just that hearing her say it out loud, in that moment, with the waves crashing in the background and the sky painted in shades of orange and pink, made everything feel so real, so solid. "I'm all in too," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. "I don't think I've ever been more sure of anything. With you, I feel like I'm home. You've made me believe in love again. You've made me believe in us." We stood there for a moment, just holding each other as the world faded away. The past, the mistakes, the heartbreak, all of it felt distant, like something that no longer had a hold on me. I was here, in this moment, with Claire, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't afraid of what would happen next. It was as if everything had come full circle. The person I had been when I left New York, the one broken by betrayal and uncertainty, wasn't the person I was now. I was someone who had healed, someone who had learned to trust again, someone who was ready for the next chapter of life. And that chapter, I realized, was already beginning. With Claire by my side, I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I wasn't afraid. Because I had learned that love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about growth, about building something together, no matter how messy or imperfect it might seem. It was about choosing each other every single day, even when things weren't easy. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. I didn't need to look back anymore. The future was right in front of me, and I was ready to walk into it, hand in hand with the woman I loved. In life, it's important to embrace your past without letting it define you. Healing comes not from forgetting the pain, but from learning to accept it and move forward. Don't be afraid to face your fears, your mistakes, and the parts of yourself that feel broken, because they are what shape you into who you are meant to be. Trust yourself, trust your journey, and don't rush the process of healing. Surround yourself with people who love you for who you are, and always remember, true peace comes from within, not from the validation or approval of others.